Have you ever felt totally unprepared for something? I remember when I was being a hospital chaplain intern, the first time I responded to a code blue. I didn't know what I was going to do or say, but the Lord was with me, and He saw me through that moment. I imagine that's sort of what it felt like for the apostles. We're still relatively early in Mark's gospel. They had only been with Jesus for a while, about 5 chapters. There's another 7, I think, ahead of them of journeying with Jesus. And He sends them out, not just to, prepare the way, but to preach repentance, to cast out demons, to anoint and cure the sick. These 12 simple fishermen and craftsmen, they'd had no training per se. They hadn't studied theology. They haven't been to seminary. They've only been following Jesus for a while. And that was really all they had. Their personal experience of Jesus, the time that they had spent with Him, learning from Him, being formed by Him. He sent them out with only a little preparation. They could have said like Amos, "I was no prophet, nor have I belonged to a company of prophets." Amos was not a prophet, and the 12 were not yet priests. God had simply called them and made them what they were and placed them where they were. And that, my brothers and sisters, is the point. They weren't able to do the things they did because of who they were. They weren't able to do the things they did because they had prepared themselves. Their authority comes from God. Their authority to proclaim the good news, to preach repentance, to cast out demons, to anoint and cure the sick, their authority came from God. And our authority comes from God, from our relationship with Him, from our knowledge of Him, from the time we spend with Him. That's where our authority to preach and to share His love with the world comes from. Some in this church are called, a few of you, to be priests or religious sisters. Others are called to be married or to be consecrated singles. But all of us, every last one of us, are called to be faithful witnesses of Jesus Christ. God has called each one of us right where we are to be His witness. God has made each of us exactly as we are and placed us where we are to be His voice, to proclaim His love and His mercy, to share the good news of salvation to a world that is desperately in need of healing, a world that is desperately in need of grace. And you, my brother or sister, are called to be the herald of that good news. Each of us, individually and collectively, we have heard the word of truth that has been spoken, a word that is not just meant for us. The good news of salvation is not just a private possession, because it is by the grace of God that we have been saved. It is by the grace of God that we have been washed by His blood, and it is by the grace of God that we are sent by His blood into the world. Each of us is called to share, just as the apostles did, in the mission of Jesus Christ. But unlike the apostles who had to hit the road with nothing but the clothes on their back, and Jesus was nice enough to let them wear sandals. But unlike them, we don't have to go on this distant journey. We don't have to travel to strange towns, because we're called to share in the mission of Jesus right where we are. As parents, proclaiming the good news of Jesus Christ to our children and to our neighbors. As co-workers, being the loving face of Christ and the healing balm of his love in our workplace. As friends who give others the place to cry and to share and to tell their story. And each of us is called to witness. Each of us is called to witness to the beauty that is Jesus Christ, to the love that is Jesus Christ. Each of us is called to witness and to preach the repentance that he calls us to. Each of us is called to conquer evil and to bring healing into people's lives and hearts as best we can by bringing his love into their people's lives. That's a tall order when you think about it. Those first 12 apostles were probably pretty overwhelmed when Jesus sent them. And it's easy for us to feel overwhelmed when we take in and realize the immensity of the mission that Jesus has shared with us. And that's why we come here. We come here. We come to the altar, the place of Christ's sacrifice, the place of Christ's gift, the font of grace, so that we can experience Christ anew, so that we can come forward and be nourished and fed by his grace. But not just so that we can sit and hold that grace in ourselves, but so that we can go out into the world and share that grace and share Christ with others. Because you see, my brothers and sisters, that is the life to which we are called. Like the 12, we are sent by the Lord to share his good news with the world. That is our mission. You and I, each of us, like the apostles, are called to be faithful disciples, sharing his good news everywhere we go.